Thanks so much, Madeline, and thank you to everyone for joining us. I'm Eliane Laberge. I'm the Bilingual Cultural Development Officer at Inoformation PEI. So I'll actually be giving the information today in French, and my colleague Shannon will do the English. So I'll let Shannon introduce herself and get us started.
Hey everybody, I'm Shannon Pratt. I'm the Creative Industries Development Officer for the province of Prince Edward Island. I work with Eliane here at Inoformation PEI. Yes, I am cold today, so I am wearing my jacket and some gloves indoors. It is not a fashion choice, obviously, because it's me. I am just really cold right now. So we're going to hop right into it. And as Eliane said, if you guys have any questions, just pop them in the chat. We'll keep an eye on the chat as we're going. I will do my best not to talk too fast because I have had a lot of tea to drink this morning and I am a fast talker just in general. So if I am going too fast, you can also put that in the chat and I will try and slow myself down. Yeah, so here we go. Welcome to the Arts Grant chat. So as a mandate, the Arts Grants exist to support the professional artists of Prince Edward Island. I'm gonna stress that again. It's for the professional artists who are based in Prince Edward Island. As a side note, I'm gonna do my best not to just read the slides to you because I know that's super boring and everybody can like look at the slides and read them. So I'm just gonna really try and pull out the highlights of what's there. But I just really want to really want to highlight the whole thing that the arts grants are really intended to support the professional artists. So now that I've said that like 5 million times, I will move on from that. The grants are decided through a peer assess process. It is similar to the Canada Council model. We have peer assessors who represent a variety of disciplines that will review all of your applications. I am probably getting ahead of myself on these slides as I often do. I apologize in advance. I'm going to stop talking already. We're off to a rough start. I'm really sorry, everybody.
No, that's all good, Shannon. Thank you.
Sorry, Eliane.
It's best to repeat than to forget things, so I appreciate you stressing those points. Donc, juste pour résumer ce que Shannon a dit, les subventions aux arts, c'est vraiment un programme qui est créé pour soutenir les artistes professionnels de l'île du Prince-Édouard. Donc, c'est important pour nous de mettre l'emphase sur ce point-là. Ce sont vraiment des subventions octroyées aux artistes professionnels, puis c'est fait par l'entremise d'un processus de demande qui comprend une évaluation par les pairs. Puis on va en parler un petit peu plus de ça puis de ce que ça comprend le plus tard dans la présentation. Madeline, you can advance the slides.
So our next deadline is coming up on Monday, October 21st at 4 p.m. And what I'm going to say about that is just because the deadline is Monday, October 21st at 4 p.m. does not mean that you need to press submit on Monday, October 21st at 3:58 p.m. on your application. You can do it anytime. If you have it ready this weekend, you could submit it this weekend. You do not have to wait until the application deadline in order to submit. In fact, I would encourage you not to, because oftentimes things go weird with websites and then bad things happen and there's panic. And we might not be able to help you if something bad happens when you are submitting. So I strongly recommend that you do not wait until the application deadline in order to submit. If you are able to submit before the deadline, please do.
Donc, il y a dans le fond, deux cycles par année pour le programme de subvention aux arts. Il y a un cycle au printemps puis un cycle à l'automne, ce qui donne aux artistes professionnels deux occasions de présenter une demande de financement au niveau provincial. Donc, pour ce cycle-ci, la date limite est le 21 octobre, lundi, le 21 octobre à 4 heures. Heure de l'Atlantique. Donc, c'est super important de soumettre votre demande avant la date limite parce qu'on ne peut pas accepter des demandes en retard. Puis aussi, on aime mettre l'emphase sur le fait que c'est important de ne pas attendre à la dernière minute pour soumettre votre demande parce qu'on ne peut pas toujours se fier à la technologie. On adore la technologie quand ça nous aide, mais des fois, ça ne fonctionne pas toujours de notre bord. Donc, s'il y a des problèmes techniques le 21 octobre, on ne pourra pas nécessairement les régler puis vous aider. Donc, d'où l'importance de soumettre votre demande avant le 21 octobre le plus possible.
So there are 3 types of grants that are available to support the professional artists of Prince Edward Island. We have the CREATE grant, which is exactly as it sounds. It's for whenever you are going to create anything. So it used to be called the Creation Grant. If you've been applying for a while, it is now the CREATE grant. We have the SHARE grant, which was formerly called the Dissemination grant. So basically, if you have already created the work and now it is time to put the work out into the world and you are going to share the work, that is the grant that you would apply to. And then we have the LEARN grant, which was formerly referred to as the Professional Development Grant. So again, if you have an opportunity for some learning, whether it is through mentorship or a short course or anything like that, we're going to get into some eligible activities in a little bit. All of those things would fall under the LEARN grant.
Yeah. And I just want to stress that you can apply up to 2 streams per round. So you could apply to create, you could apply to learn, or you could apply to share, you could apply to create, but only 1 application per stream is allowed, and you can apply to 2 streams for the same project. So you have to make sure they're different. Just wanted to add that bit. Et donc, je vais dire ça en français. Le programme de subvention aux arts, dans le fond, ça vous donne l'occasion de faire une demande à 3 différents programmes, 3, pardon, volets pour appuyer votre pratique artistique. Donc, il y a le volet créer. Avant, ça s'appelait la subvention de création. Donc, ça, c'est vraiment pour la recherche, le développement, la création de votre art. Donc, que ce soit de la musique, que ce soit de l'art visuel, tu sais, dans toutes les disciplines. Il y a aussi le volet partagé. Avant, ça s'appelait la subvention de diffusion. Donc, ça, c'est vraiment pour vous donner la chance de partager votre art qui est terminé. Donc, si vous avez un livre que vous avez publié, puis vous voulez faire un lancement de livre, si c'est un lancement d'album, etc. Donc, ça, c'est vraiment une occasion de partager. Puis finalement, on a le volet apprendre. Le volet apprendre s'appelait avant la subvention perfectionnement professionnel. Donc, ça, c'est vraiment là pour faire avancer votre pratique artistique, vous permettre d'apprendre de nouvelles connaissances. Donc, une chose de super importante aussi à mentionner, c'est que vous pouvez seulement présenter une demande à 2 volets par cycle de financement et seulement une demande par volet est autorisée. Donc, vous ne pouvez pas présenter une demande pour 2 volets pour le même projet. Il faut vraiment que ce soit des projets artistiques différents.
Okay. Like I said, we're going to talk about some eligible activities and some costs. So under CREATE, some of the eligible activities that you could submit for funding for would include your living costs. And I don't think people realize this enough, and it is so important. So you can apply to have your subsistence covered under the CREATE grant. So if you are a writer or a songwriter or whatever, whoever you are, visual artist, whatever type of artist you are, and you are creating something and you just need some time to block out all the noise and not have to worry about, a day job or whatever, and to just focus on your art and the creation, you can put in a grant to put in for subsistence and have some of your living costs covered. Don't mind me. My office door just opened and it's loud. Apologies for that. Other costs that you can put in for under CREATE grant, you could put in for travel and accommodation expenses, the direct project costs, such as any materials or supplies, pre-production research, documentation, facility rentals, anything that is pertinent to the creation process of your project would be considered an eligible cost for a CREATE grant. When we're looking at the SHARE grants, it's anything that makes sense for the sharing of that project. So again, my door's really loud. Sorry. We have a little fridge in my office, so somebody's grabbing their lunch. Anyway, so if you're organizing a tour or a presentation, exhibition, performances, screenings, web presentations, publishing, reproductions, translations. There are so many things you can do to share your work and get it out into the world. So any of those eligible costs that would like make sense for that project, those are things that you can submit that would be considered an eligible cost. Something to keep in mind. And then for the Learn grant, there are so many things you could be doing to like expand your opportunities. So mentorships, apprenticeships, internships, residencies. We've seen a lot of applications for residencies. So I know that people know about these opportunities, but I just want to like really reiterate, like this is something that is available to you. Short-term training, workshops, seminars, going to a conference, all that stuff is stuff that you can apply for funding to support. I will say though, the one thing under Learn that we have seen applications for that is not eligible is if you are in a long-term program. We can't actually, like, if you're going to UPEI for music, you can't put your actual tuition, like your full-term tuition, or like if you're studying dance at the, I'm going to say a wrong name, but the School of Ballet for wherever, like that is not something that is actually eligible. Like if it's like a full-time program, that is not. So we're looking at like short-term project-based learning. Those are all opportunities that you can apply for funding that will help you move forward. I'll stop. Diane.
If we could go to the next slide, please, Madeline. Donc, pour les activités et les coûts admissibles, il y a beaucoup de choses. Si vous soumettez une demande pour le volet créé, vous pouvez soumettre un budget qui comprend vos frais de subsistance. Donc, ça, c'est vos frais de coût de la vie. Votre loyer, si vous avez besoin de prendre du temps de congé du travail, d'un travail à temps plein ou à temps partiel pour vraiment vous consacrer à votre art, puis à la création artistique. Ça, c'est tout à fait admissible. Les frais de déplacement, si vous devez voyager pour votre projet. Il y a aussi tous les coûts directs du projet, comme votre matériel, les fournitures, aussi les coûts qui pourraient avoir lieu avec la recherche, la pré-production, la location d'équipement, puis la location de salles aussi. Pour ce qui est du volet partagé, vous pouvez vraiment, encore une fois, faire toutes sortes de choses pour partager et disséminer votre art. Donc, ça pourrait être une tournée, une présentation, une exposition en art visuel, ça pourrait être un spectacle, une projection. Vous pourriez aussi faire une présentation numérique de vos œuvres d'art original. Puis, ça peut aussi être pour la publication et la traduction d'une œuvre dans une autre langue. Finalement, pour le volet apprendre, les activités, les coûts admissibles incluent le mentorat, l'apprentissage, les stages. On voit aussi beaucoup d'artistes qui font des résidences artistiques ailleurs, donc ça, c'est admissible. Il y a aussi des programmes de formation spécialisés à court terme. Ce qu'il faut faire attention, par contre, ce sont les programmes d'études à temps plein. Ça, ce n'est pas admissible. Par contre, si vous animez ou recevez un atelier, ça, c'est tout à fait admissible dans le volet apprendre. Il y a aussi la participation à des séminaires, à des conférences et à d'autres gros événements là, qui pourraient être admissibles. Merci.
Ineligible activities. Okay, capital costs. So basically, you can't buy things that aren't directly related and consumable to the project. So yes, you can buy paint that you're going to use if you're a visual artist because it's consumable, but no, you can't buy a computer because it's something that you're going to use over and over and over again. Hopefully that makes sense. Unfortunately, if you are a nonprofit organization, if you are a festival or an event, if you are running a contest, none of those things would be eligible under this program. Some of those things would be eligible under other programs, and you should message Eliane or I separately from this, and we can talk to you and hopefully find you a different way to find funding for your project. No guarantees, but we'll do our best to help you, but the arts grants would not be for you. And as I said before, it is for the professional artists who are based in PEI. So if you are a non-professional and your activities are not professional, there's a very, 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 very strong chance that the peer assessment committee is not going to approve your project because it would be ineligible.
Thank you, Shannon. Donc, dans les activités, les coûts inadmissibles, d'abord et avant tout, il y a les coûts du capital. Les coûts du capital, dans le fond, c'est des choses comme les ordinateurs, les imprimantes, le matériel technologique, ça peut être du matériel, du mobilier de bureau, des terrains, tu ne peux pas acheter un immeuble, un bâtiment, des choses comme ça, un véhicule. Il faut vraiment que ce soit des coûts reliés directement à votre projet. Aussi, tout ce qui est festival, concours, les organismes à but non lucratif, tout ça, ce n'est pas admissible dans ce cadre de ce programme-ci. Puis, on l'a déjà dit, mais on va le répéter parce que c'est très important. Ce programme-ci, c'est vraiment pour les artistes professionnels, donc les activités artistiques qui sont menées par des non-professionnels ne seraient pas admissibles aux subventions des arts.
What is a professional status? Well, we've talked about it a lot, so I am glad that we have this slide in here now. So for starters, your professional status is really, it's determined by the stage in your career. It's not your age. Because honestly, if you were somebody who started performing at the age of 5 and you have accumulated a lot of accolades and experiences and stuff, you could be considered far more professional than somebody who is many years your senior. So it really is going to come down to like the different artist categories and what your artist CV says. We have, I don't know, Eliane, do you want to pop the link in the chat? So we have, it's kind of like a template that we put together that gives you a look at what an artist CV should look like. And it kind of walks you through just what an artist CV is, how it should be laid out, and kind of will help you see, you know, emerging versus established versus, you know, even amateur, like that sort of thing. We often see it when the applications do come in, like it can be a challenge for people to figure out where they fit in the emerging versus established thing. And we all understand that. I have seen the peer assessment committees in like send back recommendations to artists where it's time for them to like bump themselves up, where they really should be, you know, submitting themselves under established. I've seen them make the reverse, you know, thing where they were like, really feel you should still be applying under emerging, and here are the reasons why. Oftentimes you'll see an established artist in one discipline is now applying under a different discipline where they have like basically like no previous experience. So then that becomes a whole new conversation. So say you're like a musician who is now starting to do some work in the visual arts realm. We've seen a little bit of that in the last few years. So then that becomes a whole conversation about yes, they are an established musician, but they are an emerging visual artist. And what does that look like? And how does that translate onto the artist CV? But the most important thing to know about the artist CV is that the artist CV is not your day-to-day resume if you are somebody who still has a day job. I do not care if you work at Home Depot. I don't want to see that resume. Nobody who's reviewing your application for an arts grant wants to see that resume. They only want to see information that is related to your artistic practice. That's it.
Thanks, Shannon. Donc, le statut professionnel, c'est quoi? c'est quelque chose qu'on répète, que vous nous entendez dire souvent, le statut professionnel. Il faut être un artiste professionnel. Donc, ça n'a rien à voir avec votre âge chronologique. Vous pouvez avoir 50 ans et être un artiste émergent. Vous pouvez avoir 30 ans, 35 ans, puis déjà vous en allez vers le statut d'artiste établi. Donc, ça dépend vraiment de votre CV en tant qu'artiste, de vos accomplissements, de votre carrière artistique à ce jour. On fait référence aux catégories d'artistes émergents, établis et amateurs. Donc, votre CV d'artiste devrait être en mesure là, d'identifier dans quelle catégorie vous tombez. J'ai mis dans le chat le lien vers notre guide d'information sur le CV d'artiste. Donc, vous devriez utiliser ça là, pour vous aider si vous ne savez pas trop comment en faire un. C'est pas important pour nous de savoir c'est quoi votre travail à temps plein, si vous en avez un, ou à temps partiel, que vous travaillez chez Walmart ou dans une épicerie, ou si vous avez une job de bureau de 9 à 5. Ça, c'est pas ce que le comité d'évaluation va regarder. C'est vraiment votre pratique artistique puis votre expérience à ce niveau-là. Ouais, en gros, c'est pas mal ça. Assurez-vous de préparer un CV d'artiste que vous allez soumettre avec votre demande de subvention et non votre CV là, de la vie de tous les jours, là, si vous avez un emploi régulier. Next slide, Madeline.
All right. So the information we would like to see in your application. You want your project description, obviously, and that's going to detail the who, what, when, where, why of it all. So honestly, this is going to sound so silly, but I always kind of push it back to like those early days, elementary school. And I just said it, but if your project can answer the who, what, when, where, why, and how that we were taught really early on in school, that's going to be amazing. That is what you're aiming for. So with that project description, it's going to tell you like how, like what the project is and how you're going to do it. We have a template now, which is super exciting. We've never really provided a template before, but it has been requested a few times now. So there is now a template that is on the page that you guys can use that is going to help just kind of with the flow of everything. So definitely take a look at that, use that. It'll help you organize your thoughts. It'll help with the people who are reviewing your applications. If you've never sat on one of these committees, they're looking at like 100 applications. Hot tip for me to you, you're going to want to make it a little bit easier on them, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Budget. You want your budget to be as detailed as possible. Again, there is a template. There's a link to it on our page, and we can put the links to all these in the chat here before we're done, so you can just grab them as well. With the budget detail, with the detailed budget, it's a spreadsheet. Hopefully everybody is fairly comfortable and familiar with a spreadsheet, but with the spreadsheet, it's really important to know you can add in or delete as many line items as you need. It's a pretty basic looking spreadsheet, but you can tailor it so that it gives the information that you want it to give. So important. Because oftentimes what we'll see when people submit a budget, they're just like $8,000 without any sort of information to go with that. And the people who are reviewing your applications, they don't enjoy that. They really want to know how that $8,000 breaks down, like what it is being used for, like very specifically. So the more detail that can be shared in that budget, the better. The artist CV, like we just talked about, the little thingy there is in the chat. And then any support materials that you have that can help, demonstrate your recent artistic achievements, but also the support materials that can support just what it is you're doing like this project for. So here's my thing. I say it every time. I apologize if you have been on these calls before and you've heard me say this before, if you've ever just even met me and heard me say this, but here it is. If you are a musician, please include links to music. If you are an artist, a visual artist of any sort, whether it is photography, mixed media, whatever, samples of either previous work or sketches of what it is you're going to try and do, but something that shows people what it is either that you have created or you intend to create so that people have a feeling for what it is you're doing. If you're a writer, I am begging you, samples of your writing. Like, please, 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 samples of your writing. I know that this is a very small province and we are a very small community, but we cannot assume that the people who are reviewing your applications are familiar with you or your work. And you need to provide them with the tools that they need to properly assess whatever it is you are proposing. And that includes giving them examples of your work. So please, music samples, writing samples, art samples, whatever it is, I am begging you. Please, 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 please. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks, Shannon. Donc, qu'est-ce qu'il faut inclure avec votre demande de subvention? Ben, d'abord, une description de projet qui inclut les détails de ce que vous allez réaliser, de ce que vous allez accomplir avec cette subvention-là. Fait que dans le fond, c'est les grandes lignes, les grandes questions, qui, quoi, quand, comment, pourquoi. Puis, je vous invite à vous simplifier la vie. On a maintenant un gabarit qu'on a créé pour les descriptions de projet. C'est pas obligatoire. Vous pouvez ne pas l'utiliser puis créer votre propre document, mais on s'est dit que c'est quelque chose qui aiderait les artistes, puis qui aide aussi notre comité d'évaluation parce que l'information est toute au même endroit, puis il y a une certaine cohérence là, dans toutes les demandes qu'on reçoit. Alors, je l'ai mis dans le chat, mais c'est aussi évidemment disponible sur la page du programme. On veut aussi, s'il vous plaît, s'il vous plaît, s'il vous plaît, un budget détaillé avec vos revenus et vos dépenses. Donc, super important de bien détailler votre budget pour que ce soit clair pour le comité d'évaluation, comment les fonds vont être utilisés. Donc, souvent, on va voir une demande d'un artiste qui va mettre dans son budget, puis c'est un document Excel, là, c'est un spreadsheet Excel, fait que c'est pas compliqué. Vous pouvez ajouter des lignes, vous pouvez en soustraire selon vos besoins, selon votre projet. Mais souvent, on va voir dans le gabarit le budget Excel qu'un artiste va demander 8 000 $. Mais il ne va pas nous dire exactement à quoi ce 8 000 $-là va servir. Est-ce que c'est pour votre subsistance? Est-ce que vous avez des frais de déplacement là-dedans? Donc, super important là, de mettre des détails dans votre budget. Ça fait juste renforcer votre demande. Puis, ça permet au comité là, de vraiment bien comprendre de comment vous allez dépenser les sous, mais aussi vous voulez inclure les revenus. Si vous avez des subventions du Conseil des arts du Canada, vous avez une subvention de facteurs ou de téléfilm, bien, ça, c'est quelque chose que vous devez aussi inclure là, dans votre budget parce que nous, on veut savoir d'où proviennent là, vos sources de revenus. Il faut aussi inclure un CV artistique, ça, on en a déjà parlé. Vous pouvez consulter notre guide pratique. Puis, des pièces justificatives qui illustrent certaines de vos réalisations artistiques. Donc, ça, c'est vraiment très important à inclure. Si vous êtes un musicien, un artiste en musique, incluez des liens vers votre musique. Si vous êtes un écrivain, un auteur, une autrice, vous devriez inclure des exemples de textes que vous avez déjà écrits, publiés ou pas. Si vous êtes un artiste en art visuel, un photographe, sculpteur, peu importe, ben, ajoutez aussi des photos, des exemples du travail que vous avez déjà fait, parce que c'est vraiment ça qui va permettre au comité d'évaluation de comprendre ce que vous faites comme artiste, puis aussi ce que vous avez là, comme objectif avec le projet que vous soumettez. Donc, s'il vous plaît, des détails. Merci. Next slide, Madeline.
So we've talked quite a bit about the peer assessment committee. We used to call them juries. We don't want to do that anymore. It just sounds icky. So it's a peer assessment committee because it is made up of a group of your artistic peers. So that's 6 peers. It's different artistic practices. They are all from the community here on the island. It's the same model as the Canada Council of the Arts. And you can either self-nominate. So if you decide that you yourself would like to be part of the process, which I highly recommend, like I really, really, really recommend, if you, whether you are new to the granting process or you have been doing this for like your whole entire career, I find this whole process fascinating. I think it's really, really helpful to the grant, your personal grant writing, to be in the room and learning from your other peer assessors, just to see how everybody's mind works, how they're evaluating these projects, the way other people look at things. Because I think oftentimes what you think is super clear is not clear to other people. And that's another hot tip that I didn't mention before. If you can leave yourself enough time when you are working on your application to give it to somebody who knows nothing about your project and ask them to read it and see if they understand it and if it makes sense to them and get their feedback, it will be very helpful to you. Because again, we're all so in our own brains that things make sense to us and we'll put them down on paper and we think everything is super clear and it totally makes sense and like it's wonderful. But then you'll hand it off to somebody and it may not be as clear to them. So if you have a chance to get a second set of eyes on something who is separate from your project, who might understand it, I highly recommend doing that. Anyway, that was an aside that I should have mentioned like 2 or 3 slides ago. But back to the peer evaluation thing. With this, so yeah, you can self-nominate, you can nominate somebody else. We publish all of the arts grants reports after the results of the grant process are finished. That includes the information about what grants have been funded, how much funding people received, what kind of projects they're doing, what the like the rubric for how the projects were evaluated. And then it also includes the peer assessors' names and what disciplines they represent. I've lost my words for a minute. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Shannon. Donc, l'évaluation par les pairs, ça se passe comment? Ben, l'évaluation par les pairs que nous utilisons, le processus, c'est le même modèle que le Conseil des arts du Canada, dans le fond. On suit leurs recommandations à ce niveau-là pour les meilleures pratiques. Normalement, nos comités sont composés de 6 personnes qui sont eux aussi des artistes de la communauté ou des travailleurs culturels. Donc, ce sont vos pairs. Ce sont des gens de l'île du Prince-Édouard qui font partie de la communauté artistique et culturelle. Donc, c'est eux qui vont évaluer votre demande. Donc, gardez ça en tête quand vous préparez votre demande. Gardez en tête que votre public, votre audience, c'est vos pairs. Ce sont des personnes qui font partie de la communauté, mais n'assumez jamais que les gens vous connaissent. Oui, l'île du Prince-Édouard, c'est une petite île. On est la plus petite province. On a une petite communauté, mais ça ne veut pas dire que tout le monde se connaît. Donc, c'est vraiment important là, de garder ça en tête quand vous préparez votre demande, de ne pas assumer que les membres du comité vont savoir qui vous êtes puis quelle est votre pratique artistique. Mettez toujours plus d'informations que pas assez. Puis, finalement, lorsqu'on a terminé là, un cycle de subvention aux arts, on publie un rapport qui contient là, les détails de tous les récipiendaires là, de subventions. Donc, vous allez voir qui a reçu les subventions, pour quel montant, quels sont leurs projets. Ça inclut aussi une rubrique par rapport aux critères d'évaluation. Vous avez aussi les noms des pairs qui ont fait partie du comité d'évaluation, ainsi que la discipline artistique là, dans laquelle ils pratiquent. Donc ça, vous pouvez trouver ça sur notre site web. J'ai mis dans le chat le lien vers les rapports. Je l'ai mis en anglais, puis je vais le mettre en français aussi.
Okay, so please make sure your applications are complete when you submit them. And when I say complete, I mean like all of your attachments. Make sure that you actually filled out your budget template. The number of times people have sent us blank budgets. Please don't do that. A personal request from me, and something that I'm hoping we can implement in the future, but we aren't doing yet, I don't think, is maybe when you're naming your files, name them so that they actually correspond with you and your project. So don't just name it innovation budget. Name it, I'm trying to think of who was on the thing. Name it Eliane Laberge budget
Yeah.
2024 or whatever it is. Like,
Include your name in all of the files. Yes.
For the love, please. It will make things so much easier because, again, we're looking at anywhere between 80 and 100 applications, and we have to download everything. And it will help you because also, hopefully, that way you won't be sending us blank documents. And yeah, don't send us blank documents. Make sure everything you're sending is complete. Yeah, so it's assessed on a point system, artistic merit, achievability, impact. That information is all in those reports that we were talking about earlier. We'll post a link there, but you can find it on the Innovation PEI website as well. We try to reach out to everybody between 6 and 8 weeks after the grant deadline. One way or the other, you will hear from us. You never not hear from us. It just sometimes takes a little bit longer. And usually that depends on how long it takes. Well, not usually, it does. It depends on how long it takes to gather the peer assessment committee together in the end. Because sometimes it can be really hard to get 6 people in a room together for a full day to do their final recommendations. So we do our best to have it happen within 6 weeks, but sometimes it can be closer to the 8 weeks. But you will hear from us.
Merci, Shannon. Donc, juste un petit peu plus de détails sur l'évaluation. Les demandes incomplètes ne seront pas évaluées. Donc, ça, c'est important. Ça arrive qu'on reçoive des demandes où il manque des documents clés, des documents obligatoires. Donc, ça ne sera pas évalué. L'évaluation est basée sur un système de points qui prend en compte le mérite artistique, la réalisabilité et les retombées. Pour en savoir plus là-dessus, vous pouvez aller consulter là, nos rapports des programmes, là, des cycles de subventions aux arts précédents. Et l'autre chose qu'on veut vous dire, c'est que les résultats vous sont communiqués par courriel dans les 6 à 8 semaines suivant la date limite. Donc, vous allez toujours obtenir un résultat, que ce soit que vous obteniez une subvention ou pas. On va vous donner votre résultat. Et des fois, ça peut prendre un petit peu plus de temps que prévu là, selon la rapidité à laquelle on peut convier là, le comité de sélection parce que 6 personnes, c'est pas toujours facile là, de trouver une date qui convient pour tout le monde. Ça peut prendre un peu de temps là, pour rassembler tout le monde, mais on est conscient de l'importance de communiquer les résultats là, le plus rapidement possible. Donc, on essaie vraiment là, de miser entre 6 à 8 semaines. Puis aussi, je ne pense pas que Shannon l'a mentionné, mais vous pouvez aussi avoir de la rétroaction. Donc, si jamais vous obtenez pas une subvention cette fois-ci, vous pouvez nous demander pour du feedback. Puis nous, on peut vous donner du feedback par écrit. So that's just one point I think that maybe
Yes.
Shannon, you had omitted to mention is that you can ask for feedback. If you are unsuccessful this cycle, you submit an application, you don't get the grant, don't despair. Reach out to us. We can give you some feedback based on what the peer assessment committee provided, and we'll do our best to help you prepare for the next grant application cycle.
You should always ask for feedback. And like, yeah. as the person who sits here, like it's I don't enjoy the feedback process. I will be really honest. I find it really difficult because I hate giving bad news. So I find that to be like that day is probably like one of my least favorite days when we have to like reach out to everybody like on the bad news day and doing the feedback thing, because I understand how hard it is. Like, nobody wants to hear that your project isn't getting funded, and most people do not want to hear some of the feedback that is coming to you. But I strongly recommend that in any of these applications, like whether you're applying to us, Music PEI, This Town is Small, Factor, Canada Council, whoever gives you money, I'm forgetting lots of options. Ask them for feedback. I know the Canada Council put a pin in doing feedback, but I've also heard through our meeting with them last week that they are going to start bringing that back in some way, shape, or form. Ask for your feedback, because honestly, it's the only way, right? Like, a lot of times, I don't know, like a lot of times, honestly, it'll just come down to like, and it does for us, and you will likely hear this from Eliane or I, like, and I've already said this a few times, we get anywhere between 80 and 100 applications every round for our funding. That's a lot of applications. We tend to fund between 12 and maybe 20 of those, like give or take. It really just depends. The numbers have increased slightly because we have more funding now than we had in previous years, which is very exciting, and I'm very happy. But it does mean that a lot of projects go unfunded. And I'm not saying this to discourage anybody, because honestly, I want you to apply. I encourage you to apply. But I want everybody to go into this knowing that it is hyper competitive, and not getting funded is not a reflection on your project. 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with that. It is just, it's an unfortunate numbers game where there just simply isn't enough funding. And oftentimes it does, it's very unfortunate, but you should always ask for your feedback, because oftentimes, like I've seen it where like the smallest, tiniest changes made to a project that is like submitted this round that wasn't funded then gets resubmitted in the spring, and it does get funded. So like, and every group is different that's evaluating them too, right? So like, I don't know, just always ask for your funding. I mean, not your funding, always ask for your funding, obviously. But always ask for your feedback as well.
Je vais pas répéter tout ce que Shannon a dit parce que je l'ai mentionné, mais n'hésitez vraiment pas de demander pour de la rétroaction. Puis même avant de présenter une demande, si vous n'avez jamais appliqué au programme, avant de soumettre votre demande, ben envoyez-moi un courriel. Dites allô Liane, avant de soumettre ma demande, je veux juste m'assurer que j'ai bien tous les documents, ou que moi, je n'évaluerai pas votre demande, c'est pas ça mon travail, mais je peux vous dire, ah, ben tiens, il manque ça, ou ah, ben peut-être que tu peux inclure ça. So, as I said, just reach out to us. We're here to help. If you've never applied for the PEI Arts Grants before, it's a really good idea to reach out beforehand. Just to, ask questions, clarify anything that you're not sure about. We can guide you in the right direction. We won't be evaluating your application, but we can help to make sure that you have a stronger application if there's anything missing.
It is one of like my favorite myth busting things, and I'll just say it again. Ellie and Anne and I, we don't get to decide who gets the arts grants, guys. I know that there is for sure some people out there who think that maybe, but I'm just going to say it again. It is decided by a peer assessment committee, and neither Eliane or I have any say, even the tiniest little bit of it, about who is going to get an arts grant. But we are here to help you. And absolutely, if you have questions today or after today or anytime, preferably before the 21st,
yes,
please reach out to us. I really recommend not waiting until the 21st. I just can't stress that enough. Don't do that.
Merci, Shannon. Next slide, Madeline.
Oh, questions.
Here we are. So we are at the question period. On va passer à la période de questions-réponses. Shannon, we received 2 questions ahead of time, I believe. Okay. So we'll get to those first, and then that way that gives you time to think up of any other questions you might have. Fait qu'on a reçu 2 questions à l'avance. Fait qu'on va répondre à ces questions-là d'abord, puis ça va vous permettre d'avoir le temps là, de formuler vos questions, si vous en avez aussi.
All right. Under the share eligibility, can a professional musician apply to cover their own professional fee if leading a performance of a children's or amateur ensemble in a performance?
Donc, la question, c'est sous le volet partagé, est-ce qu'un musicien professionnel peut soumettre une demande pour couvrir ses frais, dans le fond, d'artiste pour une performance qu'il mène pour un spectacle d'enfants ou d'artistes amateurs?
And what's the answer, Eliane?
La réponse est oui. Artist fees are admissible or are eligible. I'm mixing French and English.
You're one of us now.
So yes, totally. That's an eligible expense under the share stream. Donc oui, la réponse c'est admissible sous le volet partagé de notre programme.
Okay. And question number 2 was, are there samples of previous successful grant applications we can look at for some guidance? Eliane?
La deuxième question qu'on a reçue à l'avance, c'est est-ce qu'il y a des exemples de subventions réussies, des subventions qui ont obtenu du financement qu'on pourrait regarder là, pour avoir un peu d'aide? Unfortunately, we can't look at past applications for confidentiality reasons. That's personal information. So that's not something we could do, but we can certainly look at in the future, perhaps putting together a template, like a fake successful application to help, applicants.
I was toying with the idea and I'm like, I would have to redact so much information that I'm just like, it's not
Yeah,
going to be
that's the
helpful.
thing. Donc, la réponse, c'est non. Malheureusement, on peut regarder là, une demande qu'on a déjà reçue pour des raisons de confidentialité. Là. On ne peut pas partager de l'information personnelle d'artistes, mais on va pouvoir évaluer, là, explorer la possibilité de créer un genre de gabarit ou quelque chose là, qui pourrait vous aider à l'avenir. Mais sinon, il y a beaucoup de conseils que vous pouvez trouver en ligne. There's a bunch of like tips also for artists that exist out there that you can find in terms of writing a successful grant application. So don't hesitate to, the internet is your friend too. We are your friends. The internet is your friend too.